Okay, welcome. Nice to have you here. Today is our Relax into Health, Wealth, and Happiness meeting. So to know what is true health and wealth and happiness is the prerequisite in some sense. And it's also the outcome of the process. So we may think that we know what it is that what health, wealth, and happiness are. And so we come, as they say, with our bowls already full. And then we can't receive, and we might walk away and we say, oh, I don't feel particularly any more healthy, wealthy, or happy, so I guess it didn't work. I guess that technique didn't work, or that meeting didn't work, or that teaching didn't work, or that whatever didn't work. And then we just do more of what we've always done, failing to recognize that we're our own problem. Looking out there, blaming everything and everyone else for our problem, but never realizing that we are our own problem. And just to hear such a thing stated, that I am my own problem, of course, then that problem nature wants to do something with that, which will only turn that into a problem. It will say, oh, I'm my own problem, bad me. I've got to, squash my ego or something like that. But that's a misunderstanding. So we want health, wealth, and happiness. We want these things without knowing what they really are. And we want them because what they're pointing to is the truth. So, of course, we want the truth because we're tired of all of the lies. We're tired of the pain of not recognizing the truth. So we want the truth, and these words point to it. And so we're attracted to it, but all too often we stay at the surface. Or if we don't stay entirely at the surface, we don't go deep enough in order to really have the truth revealed to us. And so we stay chasing our tail, as it were. We think we're chasing after health, wealth, and happiness, but we're failing to look where the health, wealth, and happiness really are. All the while, we start by thinking we know what health, wealth, and happiness would be. So I'm saying all of this as an invitation for us to be willing to look and see what is the truth of health, wealth, and happiness, so that we could actually know these things instead of just chasing after them or hoping for them or whatever we do, or working hard for them. But instead, remember, the name of this meeting is Relax into Health, Wealth, and Happiness. So we can't work hard to get it. We can't be really smart and get our way there by being really smart. We can't, use trickery or deceit or cleverness, or can't buy our way there. We're not going to None of these things are going to work. None of our usual strategies are going to work. We have to relax into health, wealth, and happiness. And as I often have pointed out, or sometimes have pointed out, we also misunderstand what it is to relax. So we think that to relax, we think to relax is means that we don't have any, we're sort of numb or unconscious. We don't feel any discomfort. But in this case, relax is a active verb. We're relaxing into health, wealth, and happiness. So we have to be active about it, not passive. We can't go unconscious. We have to be active and engaged with the relaxation so that we're conscious of what it is that this relaxation actually is. And so what is it? We want to look and see what is it that seems to be the obstacle to the realization of the health, wealth, and happiness that we desire. And if you have some ideas, other ideas about what it is that you desire, and you think health, wealth, and happiness doesn't cover the bases, then that's fine. You can fill in the blanks however you want. Whatever it is that you want, what is it that seems, just to be clear about that, maybe you think, oh, health, wealth, and happiness, that sounds too worldly, too mundane. I'm very, very advanced spiritual sort of person, so I don't want any of that kind of nonsense. I want spiritual enlightenment. I want, supreme bliss. I want union with the divine. I want whatever, however you understand it or phrase it or conceptualize it. You can say that. That's fine. And it's saying the same thing. It's pointing to the same thing. So whatever it is that you want or think you want, what is it that is the obstacle to that? So let's look together and see if we can discover something useful. So I want this supremely desirable state, or this supremely desirable experience, or this supremely desirable whatever it is. I want this. I want it. I want it, and I want it so badly. And yet I don't seem to be able to arrive there, or if I've ever arrived there, I certainly don't seem to be able to sustain it. So what's interfering? What's the obstacle? Let's look. So you have to look to your own experience. Have you ever, first of all, whatever it is that you want, maybe you can't even put it into words, but I hope you know that you're longing deeply for whatever it is that you're longing for. And so have you ever tasted it? Have you experienced it? You have some reference point? Probably. Maybe it's what we would call pre-conscious. You don't know. Maybe you don't even remember what it was. Maybe it was in utero or something. But you have some reference point. So you've tasted this thing that you want. Maybe you tasted it earlier today. Maybe you tasted it 5 seconds ago. Maybe yesterday, maybe a week ago, maybe 10 years ago. But at some point, once or repeatedly, you've tasted it. But now doesn't seem to be sustained, right? Because if it was sustained, you wouldn't be here. You would have, this would not be wouldn't be something you'd bother with, right? I mean, you don't need to show up to a meeting called Relax in Health, Wealth, and Happiness when you already know that you are health, wealth, and happiness. You're too relaxed for that. So there's something that seems to be interfering. You're not able to sustain it. So what is that that's interfering? Maybe you can describe it, and maybe you can't describe it. But here's an idea that maybe you can see if this fits. Would you maybe describe it as pain? I mean, if you feel like if there's a longing for something and you're not able in the moment, you don't seem to be able to access it or experience it, then isn't that painful? So let's call it pain. So let's say pain is interfering. You could call it other things. I'm not saying that's the only thing to call it. You could look at it in many different ways, but just for this moment, let's call it pain. So you have this pain of not sustaining what it is that you long for. And so now it seems really simple, right? I mean, if you could only just get rid of the thing that's interfering with you having or accessing or being or however you want to understand it, this supremely desirable experience or state, then you'd be there and everything would be fine. You'd be effortless, forever relaxing in health, wealth, and happiness, and there would be no problem. So uh, maybe that's it. Maybe we just need to get rid of the pain. Well, isn't that the usual strategy? Isn't that how we usually conceive of it? It's like, oh, this thing's here. It's interfering. What do I do with it? I need to get rid of it, or I need to get around it, or I need to get through it, or get past it, or I need to overcome it, or I need to dominate it, or I need to somehow fill in the blank with my strategy that's going to help me to get what I want, get rid of whatever's interfering. Well, see what it is that happens when you do that. So I have this pain and I want to get rid of the pain because the pain is the thing that's interfering and blocking my access to what it is that I desire. Only I could get rid of the pain, then I would be healthy, wealthy, happy. So I just need to get rid of this pain. Let me see how to get rid of the pain. Fight with it, try to cheat it, trick it, wait it out, numb it, distract, strengthen, all these various ways. None of them are working. It's like whack-a-mole. I don't know if you know that game, whack-a-mole, but it's it's a stupid arcade game where there's a machine and it's got a bunch of holes and fake moles pop up and you whack one and then another one pops up in another hole and you're supposed to whack that one and then another one pops up and you're supposed to whack that one. So you do all these various things trying to deal with your pain, the obstacle, the thing that's interfering with you achieving your desire. And then you're usually not successful, but on the rare occasion that you're successful, then it pops up somewhere else. So maybe here's what I'm going to propose to you. Maybe the pain is not the problem. Maybe if we look more carefully, we'll see that blaming the pain or whatever else we want to call it for our problem is still making the same fundamental mistake and putting the blame out there on something else so that I'm a victim. So I'm powerless in this whole thing. And all of it is designed, no matter how we spin it, all of it is designed to distract from the deep realization that I am my own problem. Now, I said this is usually going to be misunderstood. I am my own problem is going to be misunderstood, and it's going to turn into some sort of unhelpful kind of thing, an unhelpful process. But let's look at it and see how it can be helpful instead of unhelpful. So normally, normally we are thinking that if I have a problem, I need to I need to do something about it. And so I've got this pain, I need to do something about it. The pain is interfering with my success in achieving what it is that I want. So I need to do something to get rid of it. And it seems somewhat empowering on the surface, maybe because, hey, look, there's the thing and I can do something about it and then I'll be successful. But as I pointed out, it doesn't really work. Even if it works temporarily, then it's only an illusion because all that's going to happen is it's going to pop up somewhere else. And the reason for that should be clear by now, because I've said it multiple times. The problem is we mistake the problem for being something out there, but actually I am my own problem. So wherever I go, there I am. So if wherever I go, I am my own problem. So if I've solved all of the problems out there, guess what? Whack-a-mole. Here comes the next manifestation of the problem because I'm carrying it around with me. I am it. So so unfortunately, even though it seems to be empowering on the surface, and it's actually ultimately disempowering because it's just a setup for endless futility, which is what whack-a-mole is. Whack-a-mole, when I say whack-a-mole, whack-a-mole is just a way of describing endless futility. I mean, what a utterly futile game. What is the point? I'm going to just endlessly whack moles, fake moles. And knowing that then another one's going to pop up, what is the point of this? But this is what we're doing in life usually is this endlessly futile game where we think I'm doing something, I'm empowered. Look at me, I've identified the problem, I'm going to do something about it. But we have failed to recognize that we're making a big mistake by projecting the problem out there. And we do that, I believe, because, as I've already said multiple times, we tend to misunderstand badly that what it means for the problem, that for me to be my own problem. Because if I think, oh, I'm my own problem, then I think, well, that's disempowering. If I'm my own problem, I can't get away from me. I can't solve me. So, so we try not to see it. But let's look at this and get a little bit more clarity and a little bit more refinement um, around this notion that I am my own problem. Because sure, it sounds like bad news. I am my own problem. I admit it. It sounds like terrible news. But there's nuance here that we need to understand. So if I am my own problem, how could this possibly be useful or helpful? Well, notice that if I am my own problem, just let that in for a second. Just say that to yourself silently or out loud, whatever, but just I am my own problem, and just notice what's your reaction to that? How do you process that? What do you do with it? I am my own problem. So if I'm my own problem, what do I do with that? So you have to start to notice your own process. So maybe, I mean, if you're like most of us, I mean, you think I am my own problem, you want to do something with it. You want to solve it. If you feel like you can't solve it, if it just seems overwhelming, then you want to avoid it. You'll blank out or something, or you'll just deny, you'll reject it out of hand. You'll say, that's ridiculous. I'm not my own problem. Everybody knows the fascists are the problem. It's not me. So you will, but you have whatever strategy you have, just notice. So not trying to make a judgment necessarily, just noticing what we do. So I am my own problem. What do you do with that? Okay, now notice that when you think I, I am my own problem. Well, maybe what happens for me all of a sudden is I get very quiet, but maybe that doesn't happen for you. I'd now like to just have the rest of the meeting just enjoying the silence, but I am my own problem. So maybe the real problem here is just a misunderstanding of who I am. And maybe this doesn't have to be solved. Maybe there's no, or let's say maybe it doesn't have to be solved in the way that I normally conceive of things needing to be solved. Like I've got to have some master plan, steps 1 through 99. I'm going to execute them. Maybe it's different than that. Maybe if it's a misunderstanding, then what's really needed is clear seeing. So if you look and see what your normal ways of dealing with the problem are, then for most people, it involves a lot of activity. Now, you might not always conceive of that as being activity because some of it might be interior, but there's nonetheless a lot of activity, thinking, strategizing, scheming, imagining, a lot of activity going on. But there's a fundamental assumption or set of assumptions being made that is the basis of all of that activity. And rarely, very rarely, does any of that actually become sincerely questioned. And mostly because people are unaware of it entirely. They don't notice that the assumptions are happening. They take it for granted that the assumptions are the truth. They don't even get closer. They don't get close enough to themselves, as it were, to notice that they are prior to the assumptions. So you can notice presently, if you allow yourself, that these assumptions are underlying all of the various activities that you habitually engage in. And the assumptions have to do with who you are. So you think you know who you are. And maybe that makes sense to you, what I'm saying, and maybe it doesn't make sense to you. So let's look a little bit more in detail, just so it can be clear. Because it maybe seems nonsensical, what do you mean I don't know who I am? I know exactly who I am. I'm just giving voice to maybe what the mind would say about that, like, what an absurd statement. I don't know who I am. How could anybody say something like that? It's ridiculous. Look, I've got my ID. I can show it to you to prove I'm not lying. I was born on this date. I've got a birth certificate. I've, this is my name. It was given to me. I know who I am. I know where I live. I know what I do day to day. I know exactly who I am. I know what my political affiliations are. I know my opinions on the issues. I know who my friends are and who my enemies are. I know exactly who I am. And based upon all of that, I know what I need. And based on all that, I know what health, wealth, and happiness are. So based on my understanding, my interpretation, my definition of myself, everything else follows. Everything else is predicated on that. I mean, look, just notice, maybe you've noticed this, and maybe you haven't noticed it, in which case I'll invite you to notice it now. There are a lot of other people out there who have a lot of different ideas about things, about what health, wealth, and happiness are. Like Ramana Maharshi, uh, it, it is, conventionally we say he died. His body stopped functioning, and we say that happened as a result of cancer. I mean, I'm not trying to be particularly difficult in my use of language here. I'm just saying, uh, or maybe I am trying to be difficult in my use of language. I mean, I'm just pointing out that this is how we speak about it. I don't, it's a little, the way we speak is a little funny, but whatever. So we say Ramana Maharshi's body stopped functioning due to cancer. And conventionally, we say he died. Um, so Ramana Maharshi did not seem to define health as the absence of cancer. Ramakrishna. You'll notice a theme with some of these. Ramakrishna also, um, his his body stopped working due to cancer, and it was called throat cancer. The claim is that that is a very painful condition, which he apparently attested to. There's some reference to him being questioned about it and him confirming, yes, it hurts. But he didn't seem to define health as an absence of cancer, or in this case, an absence of pain. Um, Nisargadatta Maharaj, his body also stopped functioning due to cancer. I think also throat cancer, although I think it was throat cancer. And he also did not seem to define health as the absence of cancer. Um, so you know, Meher Baba was in several car accidents that left him permanently disabled and in a deteriorating physical condition, but he did not seem to define health as an absence of those things. Chosurgam Trungpa also was in a serious car accident that left him permanently disabled. In he regained some function, but he for the rest of his life had decreased function, presumably also physical pain, although I don't know that he talked about it. But he didn't seem to define health as an absence of those things. So I'm mentioning all of this, and there might be a part of me that's like, thinking, oh no, this is terrible. What does this mean about me? Do I have to embrace these things? Do I have to chase after them? Should I also get in a car accident? Should I also get cancer? Is that what's being said? Is that the aim here? Should I also strive to have pain and suffering in my life? Should I just try to get as much of it as I can? Should I endure? Is that what's being said? And no, it's not at all what's being said. That's not at all the point. But that um, the point is, if there is one, is that the assumptions about who I am are the real problem, not the things that we think are the problem. So I am not suggesting that you should seek out pain, because look, without seeking it out, isn't it already there? I mean, come on. You don't need to seek it out. You don't need to invite it into your life and ask for more. I mean, no matter what, it's gonna be there. So it's great to decrease it, to have to find there's no need that I just want to be clear about that. It's like good having conventionally good health, function, and good ease and comfort in the body and all that. That's great. Having strength and endurance and physical capacities and all of that. That's great. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. If you want that, you can have that. It's wonderful. No problem. But The pain is always there. So we can whack-a-mole, and then the pain is still going to be there. So if we get if we whack this mole over here and we say, okay, now look at how much more capable, successful, functional I am. It's fine. It's wonderful. No problem. I mean that sincerely. But then the pain pops up over here, and now we're experiencing spiritual pain, existential pain. We're experiencing, anguish. And we keep doing that until it gets to a point when you can't, there's no way to get around it. There's no way to resolve this. And then we're face to face with this, what I've been pointing out, which is I am my own problem. And by that statement, what I'm saying is that my assumptions about who I am are the problem. I'm thinking that I know who I am and what I want, when in fact I don't know who I am and what I want, and I'm basing all of my actions upon these assumptions. And the pain, rather than being the problem, actually is our ally, because the pain is pointing us, if we will allow it, it's pointing us directly to see where we're making this error. So we don't have to guess about it. Because the mind will say, oh, goodness, now I've got to, and there's going to be this big project. I'm going to just have to do this big guesswork, looking. It's going to be so hard. I'll never figure it out. It's going to take forever. But actually the pain is pointing right to it. So rather than trying to avoid the pain or strategize to deal with the pain in various ways, you could just allow the pain and just notice what the pain is pointing you to, and you'll see it. You'll see that you've got all of these ideas about yourself that are resulting in, or that are the other end of the other side of the same coin, that is you experience as pain. And if you just notice and allow, rather than trying to strategize to get rid of them, then you'll start to see, oh, wow. I really did think I was this thing. I really did think that I had to have these kinds of experiences. I really did think that I needed certain conditions in order for me to exist. And so I'm fighting and struggling to maintain or create those conditions. And what I mean by that is, there's many variations on this theme, so I can't give an exhaustive list of examples, but just some examples would be like, I need others to approve of me. See, if I don't have the approval of others, then I can't exist. Now you might think that sounds ridiculous, because maybe you don't define yourself in that way, but plenty of people do. Or maybe you do recognize that in yourself, oh yeah, I am. But you have to be very innocent in this process, because if you're not, then you'll deny it. You'll say, oh, I'm too sophisticated for that. I mean, come on, what am I, like 2 years old? I mean, that's ridiculous. I'm an adult. I don't need anybody's approval. I do whatever I want. But if you take that kind of approach, then it's a dead giveaway. You're just completely in denial about it. So you just have to be willing to be innocent and just see, oh yeah, I really am seeking for others' approval. I desperately want others to approve of me. And if they don't, then I feel that I can't exist. So because this assumption is being made, then there's this constant efforting going on to try to create that condition. And if well, of course, we can never successfully create the condition. And so we're just caught up in this all the time, even though we might not be conscious of it all the time, but it's just going on all the time. Just this constant thing like, oh, I'm not getting enough approval. Maybe I got some approval, but I might lose it because I got it through trickery. They don't know, I'm actually a fraud. When they find out that I'm not as good as they believe I am, then they won't approve of me. When they find out about my secrets, then they won't really approve of me. And, you know, so it's tremendous anxiety going on all the time and a sense of real insecurity because I can't exist. Because who I am is somebody who needs approval, and I might not have that approval. So either I don't exist, or I might not in the near future. I might not exist because I can't maintain the condition. Another example would be I need to be right. I need to be right. And again, you might say, "Oh, I'm too sophisticated for that. I know that I don't have to be right about everything, and yada yada yada." But actually, on some level, I think everybody struggles with all of these things. So if you're in denial about it, then it's not helpful. But if you can see it, tell the truth about it, then you can get out of your own way. Stop being your own problem. So you just see, oh yeah, I'm defining myself as somebody who's right. So if I find out that I'm wrong, then I don't exist. I might be wrong, then there's anxiety that I might not exist. Then I've got to go to war, prove that I'm right so that I can exist. How dare they, my enemy, claim that I'm wrong about anything? Maybe I'm the only one, but holy cow, sometimes like my wife or my children will point out that I'm an idiot. And there's this thing inside of me that wants to rip their head off. How dare you? But it's terror. Oh, I've been found out. I'm wrong. And now I don't exist. Um, let's see some other examples. Well, I've hinted at it with some of the um, people whose names I mentioned. So uh, I have to be. I am immortal. Just one way of saying it. I don't know if that's the best way of phrasing it, but I'm immortal. Uh, I'm flawless. I am. Uh, I am. Uh, everything. Let's see. I am. I am. Well, I'm perfect. I'm perfect in my idea of perfection. So my body is perfect in my idea of bodily perfection. My mind is perfect in my idea of mental perfection. Um, I'm sure if I had planned in advance, I could have come up with a long list and that would have maybe been helpful. But as it is, that's all I've got at the moment. But you can start to look for yourself and just see there are a lot of assumptions being made about who I am. And so, what if you didn't believe those assumptions? Just as an experiment. I'm not saying it's not like a new thing that you should do. Like now I'm a person who doesn't believe my assumptions about who I am. It's not like that because that's just another trap. But just for a moment, just as an experiment, just consider, imagine what it might be like if you didn't believe those assumptions. Could you see how it might be possible to know the deeper truth and to recognize that that deeper truth already is the health, wealth, and happiness that you desire? So hopefully you can see that. Hopefully you can see that right now, in this moment, you already are the health, wealth, and happiness that you desire. Now, this might seem where the mind might want to go with this, which would be unhelpful, would be to create now a division where it says, oh, well, there's this illusory world out there, um, which is all entirely constructed based on my false set of assumptions about who I am. And it only leads to pain when I want to have my vision of good health, my vision of external wealth, and my vision of happiness in relation to the world and others. And so I should abandon that. And I should be like Ramana and just die of cancer. But as I said, I think that's very unhelpful. So I want to just see if I can uh, do anything with that that will be helpful to clear that up so that people don't make that mistake. So the truth of who you are is, we could say, has two aspects: the universal and the individual. So the universal is the universal self. Your universal self is the same universal self as Ramana, and the same universal self as a rock. One universal self. And that universal self, we could say, is unmanifest and has no need of anything. It's already complete, and it's not going anywhere. It doesn't need to achieve anything. It's outside of time. It's boundless. So the universal self is complete, doesn't need anything. So for the universal self, cancer is not an interference. Death of the body is not an interference. Nothing's an interference because the universal self is already, like I said, it's outside of time. It's unmanifest. It's boundless. It's um, affected by anything that's occurring. So at that level, then if there was cancer, no problem. But the individual self, which is not separate from the universal self, but it's a individuated expression, like we could say that a rainbow rainbow is an emanation of light. So it is one light. The source is one and the same. There's only that one light. But it appears differentiatedly so that we see that there's red, orange, yellow, green, etc. So we could say that those frequencies, those color frequencies, are individuated expressions of a universal light. They're not separate from it, because if there was no universal light, there would be no individuated light. I mean, you can't have red without the totality of light. If there's no light, there's no red, right? So they're not separate. But red, we see the red color as an individuated expression. It's not the same as green. We see it as distinct. So you could understand it a little bit in that way, that the universal self is like the universal light. It's the source from which everything is emanating. But the individuated self, though it is dependently originating from and one with the universal self, it does nonetheless have its own unique individuated expression. It appears differentiatedly. And so you are both the universal and the individuated self. Now, as I've already said, at the universal level, nothing matters in some sense, right? I mean, nothing's going to change the universal self. So in that sense, it doesn't matter whether what happens doesn't matter to the universal self in that sense. But it does matter to the individuated self, because the individuated self is what it is, and if it's not allowed to express as it is, then it's not fulfilling its purpose. So imagine you had a rainbow, but there was no red. Couldn't really say it was proper rainbow. So we need the red in order for it to be a proper rainbow. So if the red is, we just keep insisting, no, I think it should be green. I like green better than I like red, so I think it should be green. For that matter, I like green better than I like purple. So let's make the purple also green. Let's also make the orange green. And while we're at it, let's make the yellow green. So, it should be entirely green, actually. Then you don't have a rainbow, you just have green. So it's important that you, as an individuated self, are allowed to be who you are. Now, who you are as an individuated self, that is, that to be, what is, how do I say this? By allowing yourself to let your gaze fall upon your individuated self, you can naturally and effortlessly realize or recognize who you are as an individuated self, and then you can just allow that to manifest rather than fighting and struggling to try and project something that you're assuming that you are. So if what's authentic for you, this is what I'm getting at. It may be authentic for you and true to your nature as an individuated self that you are actually, not that you even desire really as much as you are, as an individuated self, an expression of physical capacity, health, good functioning. And that's not selfish. It's not negative. It's not bad. It's not egotistical. It's not negative in any way. It's just the truth. It's authentic. But notice that if that's true, then it's true. And you can't make it true if it's not true. And you don't need to worry that it would not be true if it was true, because if it's true, it's true. But a lot of the time, what happens, well, when we're struggling with these assumptions about who we are, then the assumptions, because they're assumptions and they're not necessarily true, then there's a great insecurity there, and so we feel like we just fight and struggle and protect and defend and all of these things. And I've got to really work. I've got to be. I've got to get my physical health. It's really, really important. I'm struggling for it. I'm going to fight for it. I need it. I need it. I need it. But that's a pretty good indication that you're operating from an assumption, false sense of yourself, rather than allowing yourself to be yourself and trusting that who you are is who you are and that is perfect. So that there's no problem, couldn't be a problem with you as you truly are, but you as you imagine yourself to be can be a huge problem. Even if you imagine yourself to be something that's uh, what you think of is great, but if you don't really know it and trust it because you're not resting in the authentic knowledge of yourself, but instead it's based on assumption, then it's only going to be problematic for you. So, long-winded way of getting at this point. You have been perfectly made. You are flawless in truth. Even if you believe from your mind, from your collection of assumptions about who you should be, even if you believe that who you are is flawed, which is possible, right? Because you could look at anybody, you could look at Ramana and you could say, well, Ramana really, it was flawed. He should have shown people what, he could overcome cancer. Surely Ramana could have done that. I mean, he had the knowledge. He could have done it. He should have shown people that. That's one way to look at it. And then we say, oh, Ramana was flawed. Or we could say, Jesus was flawed. He should have shown people. You get it, not all these things, you can have judgments about it, how people should be, oh, Nisargadatta was flawed. He was a chain smoker. He should have shown people that healthier living. So we can have judgments that we should be something other than what we are, but all those judgments do is serve to interfere and distract from us allowing ourselves to really rest in who we are, to relax deeply into who we are. And so to allow yourself to rest and relax deeply into who you are is often a challenge, but it's the thing that will ultimately provide us with what it is that we really want, because it points us to ourselves. I mean, that's all we really want. No matter what we think we want, ultimately all we want is ourselves, because you can fake a lot of things, but that requires a lot of stress. because you'll know that you might be found out. And if you're faking it, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. You're doing it for, because you want somebody else's approval, or you don't want to be found out, or you want something to guard against your fundamental insecurity. But when you're willing to be fully yourself, to be exposed without the pretense, without any of the usual hiding and various strategies, but you're willing to actually just be yourself, whatever that is, however that is, then you actually find that you already have and you are the health, wealth, and happiness that you desire. And from that, what naturally happens is that expresses and manifests outwardly into the world, into appearance and so forth, in a way that is perfectly congruent with who you are, so that, or such that, if who you are is uh, somebody who expresses radiant physical health, then that is what happens. Not because you've forced it, made yourself, but because you have rested and relaxed deeply into yourself and trusted in who you are and allowed that to radiate from you, so that it can be seen, rather than trying to hide who you are behind a mask of what you imagine you should be. It makes a world of difference. If I think I should be this, radiant physical good health, and I'm just wearing a mask of that, it's a very different experience than if I actually know that's who I am, and then that expresses through me. Then there's no anxiety around that. There's no distress. There's no worry about it. There's no pretense. I'm not trying to impress anybody. I don't need anybody's approval. I don't need any kind of recognition or acknowledgement of any kind. I don't need to prove anything to anybody. I'm not. It's a totally natural occurrence. And of course, that will be valuable to others, but I don't need it to be valuable to others. That's the thing. That's not like I'm not here to prove it to anybody, but because I'm not here to prove it to anybody, that makes it all the more powerful, because then it's authentic, and we all automatically can recognize authenticity. So, as usual, very long winded and winding approach to say something very simple, which is, as I said, you are perfectly made. You, as you actually are, you are wonderful, despite any opinions to the opposite that you might have about yourself. But when I'm talking about you in this sense, I'm talking about the the natural you, your, we could say, soul. And that is, rather than operating from your assumptions about who you are or who you should be, what you need in order to exist, it's possible for you to relax truly and deeply into who you really are, into your soul, and to know and trust in the perfection of your authentic self, and be willing to be who you are. And then you automatically receive or recognize the true health, wealth, and happiness that is your birthright, because it's who you are and it's inalienable. You can't lose it. You cannot diminish it. You can't augment it. It's already complete and it's unique. So you are needed just as you are to shine your unique expression of that health, wealth, and happiness into this world. Because by doing so, of course, it's nice for you, but also it's a necessary inspiration in this world, because so many people are so lost and hurting so badly and have the wrong relationship with that pain. They think, as most of us do, that they need to get rid of the pain, that the pain is the problem, without ever realizing, because so few people even know it or recognize it, much less are willing to do anything differently. And so they believe that the pain is the problem, and it's never occurred to them that they are more more to the point, their assumptions of who they are is the real problem, and that far from being disempowering, it's greatly empowering to recognize this, because then for the first time, without having to go out there trying to do something, fix all of it, I can just start to look and see how all of my pain points me directly to recognize the assumptions that I'm making about who I am that are so painful, that I'm somebody who is not allowed to have the experiences that I'm having. And when I see that and question it and relax deeply and allow, then I get to discover that everything that happens is perfect. When I allow it, everything that happens naturally begins to align and allows the authentic, full expression of who I am, even though along the way, oftentimes it will be such that I don't understand it. It seems to be counter to what I think I am and what I want. But when I really trust and allow, then something much more wonderful is revealed. So that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed yet another long-winded production of Relax into Health, Wealth, and Happiness. And for those who are here live, if you happen to have any questions or comments, I'm happy to stay on for Q&A. I'm going to end this recording now.